And underneath, on the plinth of the statue, it said, erected by the New York friends of the great Scottish novelist. And I thought, well, you know what, I'm going to take some solace in that. There's some kind of Jungian confluence there. So I decided that I would continue on, and I fired that agent, and I got the book published. And they came and apologised to me, and I really enjoyed that. I didn't hire them again, but I really enjoyed it. It's a really wonderful feeling.
Speaking of Carl Jung, he makes repeated appearances in
Between the Bridge and the River?
Yeah,
he does.
Did you grow up in a storytelling tradition, or have you been a storyteller all your life? Because certainly in Between the Bridge and the River, you take a number of opportunities to diverge into these tales where one of the characters in the book is near death and goes into this amazing phantasmagorical world with Carl Jung and others leading the way, and it's a great opportunity to go into this completely other area. It makes me wonder if that was part of your tradition growing up, just the storytelling tradition.
Well, I'm a Celt, and there's a great storytelling tradition there, and also I'm a drunk, and there's a great storytelling tradition there. And then I did a bit of acid, and that takes you into some other world. So that kind of comes together. I think though that what really worked for me was that, those people that I'm not mentioning that helped me stop drinking, they have a great tradition of telling their stories. And they all tell their stories over and over again. And I find it fascinating, and I still do. I meet with people who used to get drunk all the time, or who still do and are trying to stop. And they tell their stories over and over again, and I tell mine over and over again. And there's great health in that, and great solace. And I have seen miracles happen just from the telling of stories over and over again. And so I'm drawn to it. And also, I don't know what else there is. I don't know how else we communicate. I don't know how else to be other than to tell stories. And also I realised that, when I'm playing Between the Bridge and the River as well, it was a very strong reaction to the confines of Hollywood. When you write a script and then some guy that you wouldn't trust to walk your dog will come in and say, don't you think that the lead character should have, a hook instead of a hand or something? And why would he have that? It's because, research shows that 18 to 34-year-old men respond well to characters that have got a hook in their hand. Before you know what you're doing, you've got this pirate love story. And it was a real response to that. And as the little revolution grew inside me, away from these people, that's how the book evolved, and that's why Virgil turned up. That's why H.P. Lovecraft came into the book. That's why Jung is in the book. That's why my great-grandfather, who was killed in the First World War, is in the book. And I went to Paris to write a lot of this novel. And then when I came back, I'd been away for a long time, and I went to a meeting of these people that I'm not going to tell you who they are, but they get together. And this girl came up to me and she said, "Where have you been? I haven't seen you for a long time." I said, "I've been in Paris writing a novel." I said that because I don't like her, so I wanted to say that to her. I said, "I've been in Paris writing a novel." And she said, "Oh, you mean you've been isolating?" I said, "No, I've been on my own because writing a novel requires that." I don't know. I love that you're allowed to do that with a book that hasn't been commissioned. I mean, it's a little stricter in an autobiography, because you have to kind of, after the James Fry thing, they kind of want the truth, But
now, James Fry, I'm glad you brought him up, because he shows up in your stand-up, and then he shows up on your show.
Yeah.
Because you're interested in him, I guess.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when people said, and James Fry, Oprah was horrified that James Fry had written this book and that he lied, and Oprah was upset, and America was upset because a junkie had lied.
I want to take an opportunity, because we're talking about between the bridge and the river. I have a question that may not be of interest to anybody, but since you're here, you said that one of the impetuses of that story was you were having a conversation with a friend about suicide. And this friend told you about what a Jesuit priest.
A Jesuit priest. My friend Philip, who writes in the show, he said that he'd had a conversation with a Jesuit priest, and they were talking about suicide. And the Jesuits, I've always rather liked the Jesuits. I think they're real smart, you know. So there's a lot of the Catholic Church I'm like, oh, really? But the Jesuits, they're an impressive bunch. And he was talking to this Jesuit, and he said, so what happens, Father? If do all suicides go to hell? And the priest said, no. For example, he's not Irish, but I just think it adds flavour. He said, for example, if a man were to jump from a bridge and genuinely repent his action before he hit the river, he would enter the kingdom of the Lord. And I thought, I love that. I love that.
Well, and having been raised in the Catholic Church, this is why I wanted to ask you about it, because it sounds like the kind of crap that it was fed to us when, as young people, you ask, well, what?
I don't think it's crap.
Well, look, I'm not necessarily saying this, but as a young man, when I would ask, well, if they said, well, if you're not baptized, then you go to hell. Right. And you would ask, as young people, they say, well, what about babies who die before they're, and they would say, well, there's limbo. So they would have
I thought that was a dance.
Well, it is both a dance that babies do in some place that's not hell.
Right.
But it's kind of it always was a fudge to me. It was like, well, you've got this dog.
Fudge? Dancing and fudge? This sounds like heaven.
So
there's dancing and fudge
and baby.
Oh man.
So I probably shouldn't have brought it up.
No, it's fine. Come on, relax. You're amongst friends.
So do you believe that to be true? I mean, if you're going to a bridge and you're committing suicide.
No, I tell you what I believe to be true. I believe that every church I've ever come across, every theology that I've ever come across, within that theology, there seems to always be one or two who are genuinely trying to find a loophole where love can get in. And where dogma exists, love cannot get through. But what people like the guy who believes in the bridge and the river, or Thomas Aquinas when he marries the teachings of Aristotle to the Catholic Church, they're trying to find a loophole for love to get through. These are people who are working for the universe. So these are true theologians. I like that. I like that. And I wouldn't ever rain on anybody's parade about what religion they choose, because who the fuck am I to say that? I don't know. You know, and when people say, you know, it's the whole argument that it's very popular amongst the bourgeoisie or the pseudo-intellectuals or whatever they're calling themselves these days, that faith is somehow about fundamentalism, and it should be derided. It's not. It shouldn't be derided. Faith, by its very nature, requires doubt. If it doesn't have doubt, it's not faith. It's OCD if it doesn't have doubt. It has faith. A component, an essential component of faith is doubt. I am happy to bring doubt to the equation, and I'm looking for someone to bring the other part to help balance it out. That's all that I'm doing, but I am certainly not trying to rain on anybody's belief system, because I don't know any better, and I'm not setting myself up to say that I do. And I'm trying to avoid protests.
Pretty good for a guy who dropped out of school at the age of 16.
Oh, well. That's, was that because I used a big word or because I dropped out of school?